talk about how do we build entrepreneurship ecosystems in universities and communities. So what the urgency today is that you have some really interesting post-COVID challenges that are coming out after the coronavirus has come and gone. We have seen in news that 22 million Americans have lost their jobs. Close to unemployment is going to be 20%. Even in India, it has risen up to 122 million people have lost their jobs after COVID. And if you really look at the growth, 2020 is going to be a negative growth pretty much in every country other than in India and China, which is India has the highest of the lot. But the real question is what happens after this? How do you create these jobs? And that is a question that every single government in the world are currently looking through. So my first question, I'll actually split this up into 3 questions. The first question is that how do we create jobs in the post-COVID world? First, so very interestingly, the next question is who can create these jobs? And one thing, if you look at corporations as a source of jobs, that means companies creating jobs, that primarily depends on market demand. They're not going to go hire people till the market needs them. There is stability of economy. Governments may start infrastructure jobs to get short-term, low-wage jobs going, but neither of this actually creates a steady, sustainable growth in jobs. And when you look at startups, early startups, this is a study from Kauffman Foundation. What they found is that startups from 1 to 5 years have created the maximum number of jobs. That means startups create most of the jobs and they create high value jobs. Okay, and to create startups, you don't need as much capital as you think, and you can even grow faster and build faster. So I can actually get to that in the answer part later. So the first answer to the first question is yes, entrepreneurs create most of the jobs. Entrepreneurs create companies, companies create jobs, jobs create wealth and communities welfare and such. Now, the second question is now great. Now, if entrepreneurs can create all these jobs, how do we create entrepreneurs? And this is where the real part of my study and my research comes. Now, when you look at every entrepreneurship programs, most of the programs in the world, what mostly happens is they take in people who say, I want to start a company, I have an idea, and you give them all the help and training and funding and everything to start their first company. But that's only a very, very few people in the whole crowd. I think we should be focusing on the large community of if it is students in a school, you should be looking at the larger community to see how do you encourage, if you have 5,000 students in a college, how do you encourage these 5,000 students to become entrepreneurs? And some of them will aspire, some of them will start companies, and whole kind of things will change. Now, within the university system itself, if you look at the universe of students and see some of them aspire to be entrepreneurs, some of them become student entrepreneurs, some of them become experienced entrepreneurs. So in a few years back when I did the study in India, the real conversion was about 5,000 to 1. Even in your own university, if you just took all the students who graduated in the last 5 years and looked to see how many started a company while they were still students, and the number would be in about 1,000 to 10,000, somewhere in between, depending on where you are. And that conversion rate is really poor, because it's not because they cannot become, it is something really is stopping them from even aspiring to be entrepreneurs. So let's actually look at that why. If you look at these as taps that control the flow from one to the other, and if you look at the university or a college or a community, when you set up an ecosystem, it accelerates the flow. It opens up the tap so that students think about becoming aspiring entrepreneurs and such. When there are student entrepreneurs, investors come into the place, and the investors help open up the taps a little bit more. When there are experienced entrepreneurs, they actually add to the ecosystem. When you have university level programs, like many of the universities already have, that encourages more the building up of the ecosystem. And of course, there are government policies and programs which is driven by entrepreneurs, investors, and such, which kind of accelerates the university programs. Now, the interesting thing is that all these programs, current entrepreneurship, training, it primarily focuses on how do you take the aspiring entrepreneurs, and then take them to becoming entrepreneurs. What is really missing is this part. How do you take an average student in a college or school or even in a community to start to think that I want to be an entrepreneur? Because if you can make that kind of a change, that is a leverage point. Because this is like a power amplifier, and I am an electronics engineer, so I think of this as preamplifier and power amplifier. Power amplifier doesn't have much gain, but it has a lot of power. Preamplifier doesn't take much power, but it has a lot of gain. That means you could actually bring a whole bunch of kids from these colleges, but through the right kind of intervention, make them aspire to be entrepreneurs, then the rest of the system can take care of. So one is a top-down approach, and the other one is a bottom-up approach. We need both to create entrepreneurs. Okay, so I think of those aspiring entrepreneurs as pre-entrepreneurs. And my definition of pre-entrepreneur is someone who has the skill set and mindset required to be an entrepreneur, and the confidence and aspiration to take the first step. But they were never done a company in their life before, but they have the skill set and mindset. Now the question is, what are the skill set and mindset? And that is what I'm going to come to next. So I think there are three major factors that change. One is internal. There is self-efficacy, which is a confidence to take on unknown challenges. And that primarily comes through trying different things, failing, understanding, figuring out, trying again, succeeding, and slowly building that confidence to pick up. So I strongly believe in failure, and I will actually talk about it a little later. External is a supportive ecosystems that you build, other students and other faculty or other mentors and such. And the last one is early intervention. How early can you start to change these kids? Because everyone takes time to build up their skill set. When they're in 23, 24, if you start, hopefully they'll become something about 35. But if you start them when they're 10 years old, you could actually have a serious advantage by the time they get to college. So I believe entrepreneurship doesn't start in their 20s, they actually start when they're 10 years old. And I will talk about the programs I talk about. So when I was doing my research at MIT, my thesis was to see how do you create entrepreneurs from the bottom up. So my advisor asked me, how do you do this? And I said, I want to go to India and just see how I can convert as many students as entrepreneurs. And so I did not have a clear way to do it. So he asked me, you're an entrepreneur, you came from a place in India, tell me, how did you change? So basically, I came from Kerala. I was born in a little village, lower middle class family. I got introduced to electronics through a local radio repairman in my village, and I started doing kind of things that I wanted to do in a high school, and I was making things. I went to study electronics at Indian Institute of Science. Wanted to be a product designer. I did my master's there. And I wanted to study manufacturing engineering. I went to University of Massachusetts to go do that. And then I started designing a whole bunch of products and started several companies. And I said, I think I can think of myself have gone through 3-4 phases. And the first phase is zero. Zero just means that somebody is uninitiated. Somebody hasn't even realized that they could be an entrepreneur or an innovator. Okay. And the next stage is that of a maker. Maker primarily is based on creativity. Can you express your creativity? Can you build your curiosity? Can you build your confidence? And can you build the skills for self-learning? And I since I'm an electrical engineer and a product designer, I teach making through those lenses. So I teach them in designing products. So I created this program called a 48-hour Maker Fest called Zero to Maker. Actually, if you go to zerotomaker.org, you will see a lot of these kind of work. And what we did was, within 48 hours, we brought these school kids and we taught them product design, mechanical design. So mechanical design, all kinds of things where they could learn to do CAD, 3D printing, coding, uh, just about a whole bunch of things like that. They actually have to make a product. I know the audio is not coming through, so I will actually speak over it. So these are students, 17-year-old school students, high school students, and they made a product. This is called a little baby, automatic baby cradle. When you put a baby in the cradle, it will start to operate by itself and stuff like that. Very, very silly. But we asked them, don't make anything that solves any problem. Design things to have fun with it. Okay, this was a cockroach, trap. When the cockroach walks in, it automatically closes and all those kind of things. So they made silly things like, this is a useless box. When you turn it on, it will turn itself off. It can get angry. It can play with you. But imagine, in 2 days, these kids designed the whole mechanical part. They 3D printed the hammer. They wrote software for the operation. And in 48 hours, they made this product. So imagine the confidence that they build over this. And these are not engineering students. They had never studied engineering. And if they could do this, and I believe anyone can do this. Okay. So now I started checking how young can I go. These are 6th graders in Ho Chi Minh City. Other one was in Kuala Lumpur. 6th to 11th grade students. They made a robot that kicks a ball and goalpost that scores goals. And these are the kids. So this convinced me completely that in universities, we think that if you join as an electronics engineer, you can never do mechanical, you cannot never do anything else. Or if you start off as a civil engineer, you can't do anything else. That is absolutely false, because you can learn everything, because these school kids with very little experience could do that. So I want to quickly talk about this craft and art of making. Most of us, when you're learning to play violin, initially our violin sounds like you're killing a cat because it will be so awful. What happens is that you kind of give up because you don't know how to master it. Okay, so that is the craft part. If you're a woodworker, all your planing and chiseling and all those things are the craft. The art is making a chair. Art is making music. But you have to go through the craft to get to art. Most of us lose. Most of us give up during the craft because we feel we cannot learn. But by using digital fabrication, by using electronics and 3D printers and such, I can imagine something and I can create something in 3 hours, and which I'll show you. That kind of short circuits this whole process and then start to build their confidence. And I'll show you the experience later. The next stage is that of an innovator. Innovator has to find problems. Innovator has to have critical thinking to create solutions. And they need to identify how to solve these kind of things. Okay. And interestingly, right in Gujarat, Hani was in my class in 2015. He was a first-year student. We went out to study. I was running a program from MIT at PDPU. So we went out to find problems with this girls in blind school for the blind. And what we found is that some of these girls were walking into trees or walking into low branches or something. And we came back and started talking about what if we can create something that will help them. And we came up with this idea for a torchlight for the blind. And after the course was over, Hani called me and said, "Sir, I want to make it into a company." And he went and started a company. Now he has sold nearly 1 lakh of these products in Africa and several other countries in Asia. So he has gone from a problem solver to an entrepreneur already. This is Dhruv. Dhruv was also in my class. I purposely put a picture of him when he was young just to embarrass him. So his passion was to teach school kids. So we were working in several projects. Uh, so he heads in Ncube Labs, and we also set up a fab lab called Ncube Fab Lab in Gandhinagar, right there in Gujarat. So this is I know you can't hear the audio. This is a school kid in Mysore. She was learning, creating something that with a she created this little device which, when you make noise, it'll actually detect the noise and turn on the LEDs according to that. And she's 13 years old. And these are from schools around Mysore, from villages, that do from government schools. And most of them had never touched a computer 2 days before they came here. And they pulled out all these things together, made the circuit, made the code, and they could actually do these kind of things in no time. So I'm telling you, this is not rocket science. It is all your own fear that is stopping you from getting there. So my process primarily is, you have to do, you have to fail. You absolutely must fail. And once you fail, you stop, analyze, understand what went wrong, learn from it, and then launch. So this failure is, if everything went right, you have no idea what went right, why it went right. Okay, when things fail, that's when you learn. But you should, of course, these programs create a safe place for controlled failures. So they could learn while not by completely failing in the first shot. Okay. The last stage is that of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur converts problems into opportunities. He creates value for the customer. He creates a strategy to solve the problem, and he take risks. It could be he or she. And that is the mindset of an entrepreneur. So they're all primarily system thinkers. When a maker thinks within the mechanical electrical product, innovator thinks within the problem system, and an entrepreneur thinks within the business system. So you need to solve a problem really well. You have to start from right to left and left to right. So when you see a business, you need to go back and create an innovative solution and use the technologies to create the right kind of products. So an entrepreneur has to be all three. So basically, when zero is uninitiated, maker basically hacks things, makes things that are feasible, that can be made. Innovator hacks problems, make things that people want. And an entrepreneur hacks opportunities, makes things that can be made and people will buy. So the Zero to Maker program has been running for a little while. So one thing we created, the three things. Most of the communities can't afford a 3D printer and lab and such. So we created a 3-tier program. One is called the Zero Lab, Mini Lab, and Maker Lab. Zero Lab primarily is we go ask the students to bring trash and we make things with that. So this is in Ida in Gujarat, right there, and the other one was in Jakarta, Indonesia. We were teaching them, these are school students, we were teaching them basics of physics, light, sound, structural, static and dynamic systems and things like that. Then we also had this thing called a mini lab. Mini lab experiment was primarily interesting. We took some motors, took some wheels and power adapters and switches and things like that. And we asked these kids in some of these villages to go make a robot. And that is all we gave. Of course, some wires on top of that. And we went back and they said they made robots that could play football. And by the way, the sheet metal thing that you see on the robot are CD case or CD-ROM player's case or something like that. And so they were making these things. This is somewhere near Ida, okay, and it's a Unique school, and the communities around there were all here. And actually, the only flat place we could find to run these programs was in front of this mandir, and that was the Zero to Maker program. And of course, they use this program to teach school kids in robotics. This again in either and making them design these things and do obstacle courses. And some of these students started working with local carpenters to create more sophisticated robots. And believe me, there is no electronics in this. This is just switches to turn the motor in one direction or the other. And with that, they made pick and place and claws and all these kind of things. So all these things can be made by school kids. And this is the same kit they were making, something that plays cricket. Okay, so it's all just fun, all in good fun. Now, the Maker Lab was interesting. Maker Lab, we created a Maker Lab in a box with 3D printers, hand tools, power tools, all kinds of electronics, and motors and robotic kits and all those. And we made several boxes of these, and we ran a program. 10 in Malaysia, in 10 schools in Malaysia, 7 schools in India, in Mysore, and the other one was in the northern end of Malaysia on the border with Thailand. So we took 6 students and 2 teachers from these schools. We ran a workshop, same workshop as in previously, they designed and make all these things. We also taught them how to set up their own Maker Lab. They could take these box of tools back to their school and set up their own lab. And we mentored them for 6 months. And then we had the final competition on where they had to come up with all the things that they designed. So when we ran the program, this is what happened in the first 3 hours. This is in Malaysia. They were given a box of unassembled 3D printer, and they had to assemble the 3D printer with the manual. And these are 13-year-old students. They had to figure out how to assemble a 3D printer, and then they had to install CAD, learn CAD, design their first 3D CAD object, and make their first print, all before noon on day 1. So if you think you can't do this, think again. Okay, these students put it all together. So they 13, 14-year-old students. Okay, and most of them were computer illiterate. They had to learn these things as they went. And what I'm saying is that we are denying a lot of things to our students because we assume they may not be able to do it. And I think it is absolutely wrong. So answer to the question, can entrepreneurs be created, is absolutely they can be created. Okay, they can be nurtured and created. Now the next question is, how can you scale it? So if entrepreneurs can be created, now you cannot go create them one by one. How do you create it? And this is where the real interesting part comes. And this is where the importance of an ecosystem comes in. If you can create an ecosystem that actually gives and it keeps developing. So MIT has a very good entrepreneurship ecosystem, innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. But I can tell you the students there are no different from any students anywhere else. Last year, I think there were 250 companies that started at MIT, and that is official count. Then you have students who start the companies in their own dorm rooms, in their hostel rooms. Like Dropbox is one of those companies that they start in their own dorm rooms. That is another 200 every year. So about 400 to 500 companies come out from this place every year. But why? They are not any different from any other student anywhere else. It's because of the ecosystem. And you can build the ecosystem. And that is what I really want to stress on at this time. So this was an experiment I ran as part of my thesis at MIT, but the experiment was done in a small college in Trivandrum. So this is an engineering college in Trivandrum, and in 2014, I ran a 5-week boot camp, only in the afternoon. So after this college is over, from 4:30 in the evening till 8 o'clock, okay, for 5 weeks. And I took in 15 students, first through 4th year students, both equal gender, men and women, and took students from all the disciplines and very broad background, like economic background as well as educational background of the family. We had all the mixed backgrounds. And in 2018, we checked to see what was the impact of this intervention. So, this was a picture when we were running the workshop, and there were only some of the students, 26 students. We just took a back picture. I just saw this picture 2 days back, and I asked somebody how many of them became entrepreneurs, and all these students, that is 11 students out of 26 in this picture. I didn't even, out of the 50, one in three became entrepreneurs. Okay, so we have 4 mentors also. They are not encircled, but basically we remember we talked about 5,000 to 1. Now we are talking 3 to 1. Okay, of course 3 to 1 requires a lot more close engagement. I think the conversion rate at MIT may be about 50 to 1 on average. Entrepreneurs that are coming out, 1 out of every 50. So my thinking is that this ecosystem would actually start to change how students think. And in 2014, after I ran the workshop, the college had 11 startups, but in the previous 12 years, they only had 1 student startup. And after that, every year they had more and more startups. So what it says is that that ecosystem can be created, and this is what happened today. Now they have their own innovation entrepreneurship development center, and this is what the principal said. They've had significant changes. They raised their aspiration, they found their direction, they improved their academics. Several of the students went to foreign universities, and startups started emerging in their schools, in that school. So one intervention, and I did not touch them for 4 years. What it said is that one intervention created enough people who were so inspired. They went and taught others. They went and started companies, and other students started watching them, and they also want to do the same thing. So now, how do you do it in schools? These are the experiments that I've been running. So a 6-month-long program where we select some students. T1 is when we measure that, we understand how their academics or interests and things like that. Then we do a workshop. Then we measure it again. Then we have a 6-month coaching, and then they have come back with the final thing, and then we measure it again. And what we found is that out of the 17 schools, 10 in Kedah, Malaysia, and 7 in Mysore, we had 102 students that we started with in 17 schools. In 6 months, it became 1,100 students, 1,100 students in all these 17 schools are very active makers in these schools. So that means we did not touch them much after that. It actually, you create change makers, and they create more changes, and they create more of those change makers. So this actually was happened in Mysore. As I said, these students on day 1, we had to show them how to move a mouse, how to do Google, and this is on day 3, where they had designed their CAD, they had done their coding on Arduino, and they were doing 3D print. And we actually set up the labs in their schools, and what we found is that the schools did not have internet connection, schools did not have computers, so we had to do all those things, and all with the help of Larsen and Toubro. So these are the kids who did this. Okay, they're all from rural schools, and most of them did not speak English, so we had a translator when we were running the workshop. And it is absolutely amazing to see that they could actually do this. So in communities, this is in East Timor, the country on the eastern end of Indonesia. This is the Minister of Education of the country, and that's a lab that I set up with my team. And we created this ecosystem to bring in youth and taught them all these things and asked them to go solve problems in farms and go out there and find problems, come back, create products, create services, and somebody is going to pay you to solve these. So that means you're actually becoming an entrepreneur while you're doing all these things. So these are the youngsters, and they started teaching younger students, and your multi-generational impact that you're making. So this is what I learned in this. To conclude this, first is we are leaving behind 1 million bright kids everywhere. And as I said, I have taught schools in Mysore, schools in Phillips Exeter Academy in which is like where Mark Zuckerberg studied. Uh, and what I found is that the students in all these schools are equally intelligent. There is zero difference with their ability. There is a huge difference is in what they have been exposed to. While these kids in Mysore were just about learning to use a computer when they are in the 13 or 14 years old, the kids in the other schools may have started doing it when they were 4 years old. Okay, and that is an advantage. But these are things that we can give. These are nothing natural that somebody had more talent. It is just that they have not been trained, and that is something we can do. Second thing is the mentors are the catalyst. If you can create mentors who can actually go out and reach these students and change them, they start to, you can actually, it is a force multiplier. If a mentor can actually reach about 100 kids, I can reach maybe 100 kids, but if I can create 100 mentors, they can reach, put together, we can reach 10,000 kids. Okay, so that is a geometric progression that we need to have, and the mentors are the catalyst for that. And the third is you need to actually intervene as early in their life and start to make this change. So don't wait till they're in the college. Okay, if you start to intervene in schools, you're going to get better trained students in your college. So your intake in your college is going to be better. So it is absolutely important to start early. So why should universities build ecosystems? And first question, the answer is you want to create job creators. A place like MIT, nobody talks about how many people were placed. I know in the US, in India, most of the universities talk about percentage of people placed. Imagine if your university creates 50 startups a year, 500 jobs a year, then new applicants are going to come to your university because you have a very different university than anywhere else. They want to be entrepreneurs. So think about job creators, think about startups versus placement. Second thing is every student needs to go through this interdisciplinary training. It doesn't matter if you're in engineering, in arts or fine arts or history or language, law, everybody needs to learn to design outside their core competency. They need to learn other things, because these are the fourth industrial revolution talent or the skills that the companies need. So you cannot be one single disciplinary student anymore. And the third is, if you have a well-rounded set of students, you have more employable students. Imagine if all the students have gone through the making skills and they all can do mechanical, electrical, problem solving, entrepreneurship skills. They all are pre-entrepreneurs. You have a much better, more employable student group. So the answers to the three questions is, one is, yes, entrepreneurs create a lot of jobs. Innovators and entrepreneurs can be nurtured. They are not just born that way. You can nurture it. Some people who are lucky enough to be born in a family who are already entrepreneurial, they are getting that ecosystem within the family to get the training early. So it is not because they were born that way. It's nurtured. It's not nature. It is nurture. Last is ecosystems can transform individuals and it can transform communities. So to close it, this is my goal. I always put the screen at the end. This is one thing, is to tell myself that I have set this goal in front of a lot of people. And I want to reach 1 million students all over the world and create 100,000 entrepreneurs in the next 10 years. And the programs currently that we have started is well on its way. And we can only do this through an exponential growth. I cannot linearly go teach 1 million students. I want to teach students who go teach other students, who go teach other students, create ecosystems, grow in different places. And that is what I have. And that is my short presentation. And I would like to take any questions if you have.
So one of the question is, I think we'll start with one of your student. Pragya Purohit, grade 11 student, student mentor from Zero to Maker.
Oh,
She
yeah.
asks that it is very difficult to change the mindset of the community. Students' mindset you are trying to change through Zero to Maker, from becoming a normal student to an entrepreneurial thinker.
Yes.
A vision, we are trying to ignite the vision in them. So how to challenge, convince the families? It's a challenge in her case too.
That's a very, very good question. See, when the family is telling you, don't start entrepreneurship, go find a job that you can settle in, what they're trying to do is to give you a safe path. Okay, because they are worried that you may do something in entrepreneurship, or you would do, and you may fail, and they don't know how you can recover from this. So they're trying to keep you in the middle of the court. Okay, that means don't go to the edges. The ball may go out. Just play in the middle. But if you, as a student, do things and show the others that yes, you can do all those, others will start to change their thinking. It actually when I ran this program in Trivandrum, I used to get calls. We used to get calls from parents saying, we don't want my student to be entrepreneur. We want them to take up the Infosys job that they're going to get. Okay, and their first reason is that parents want them to settle in. But the moment they started showing that they can do all these things, the parents said, that is fine. Looks like I believe in you. I have confidence in you, and then they do that. So till then, yeah, it actually goes both ways. You have to establish your own things so that they have confidence in you. And the parents, you have to give your students, kids, a little bit time to learn, because entrepreneurship is like learning to walk. You're going to fall a few times. That it doesn't matter whatever you're doing, and you can't and learn to take baby steps, fail, learn, and that's the reason if you start early, by the time you're in 20s, you already have the right mindset and you have the skill set. But if you start at 20, when you have a lot of social pressures and social responsibilities, a failure is seen as something too big. So it's absolutely important to start. I think what Pragya is absolutely amazing, and there are a few kids on Zero to Maker. You will see we have this program called Children and Students as Mentors, and these are 7th and 8th and 9th standard students who are giving classes online on artificial intelligence to 3D CAD and all those things. So you can actually see it all on the website. So that was my quick answer to Pragya's question.
Another thing I would like to pick your brain is to what do you think could be the importance of introducing design thinking early to the student, probably in the first year of college, because we are looking at design thinking as this same opening up of the mindset. From a normal student, he can become a curious student.
Yeah. Okay. So I teach design thinking. I'm a practitioner of design thinking. I went to Stanford. I studied did the course there, and I've been as a product designer and a entrepreneur. You're a practitioner. You like it or not. My understanding, my interpretation of design thinking is this. All through your school, you are given questions. You're given a problem, and your job is to come back with answers. But nobody ever taught you or even asked you to come back with problems. Okay. First thing is, can you come back and say, what is the problem that I see? Before I jump into a solution, what is the problem that you're trying to see? Design thinking's, in my mind, the most important part is, can you get to the problem? Because if you can get to the problem, you can figure out if it is worthwhile, then you have a value that you're creating. If it is not worthwhile, then there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, there's nothing you have to understand the problem. Then you can analyze the problem. If you can, the problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills is basically what design thinking is. If you can teach them early on, that changes the way they solve problems, start companies, design products, and even be a citizen of the country, a better citizen.
Yeah, so to that extent, as being a director of higher education, I have written to all the universities to introduce design thinking as a creditable course and make it available to all the students across all the disciplines, whether it's an engineering, science, economics, commerce, anyone. Design thinking is not a technical forte. It is about being approaching a problem in a systematic way and trying to find out the real situation. So it gives us a framework to analyze that. I would now request Hiranmai to pitch in with some questions that have been asked.
Okay. So one take on your question on design thinking is that it need to be practiced. When you learn, every week they should have a new problem that they need to go find and solve. And if they can do that on a week-to-week basis, then by the time they're finished through the course, they know how to approach a problem and solve it. Go ahead, Hiranmai.
Wonderful. So Rajesh ji, before I take another question, I have a question.
Sure.
So I know both the case studies that you mentioned, Hani Bachandani from PDPU University in Gandhinagar, and Dhruv was interning with me 4-5 years before.
Yeah.
Amazing kids for sure. Dhruv comes to me one day and he says, Hiranmai sir, I can't get degree from my university. I'm sure about it. I told, how can you be so sure that you will fail? He said, I'm double sure about it. And then I looked at him. I told, then what's your plan? He told, sir, I'm going to MIT. Thought this guy is not clearing exam in his college and going MIT. I told, what do you do there? And he says very wonderful thing. He says, I might have failed in this subject because of something else. Maybe I don't like that, but I have not failed in life. I have succeeded many parts in my life, and I have discovered what I am good at. And therein he went to San Francisco, sent me a picture. He met you. After he came back, he had never looked back. I keep on meeting him every 6 months. Last time when Government of Gujarat used to arrange the Vibrant Gujarat Science Summit, he was in a panel with Secretary of Education and all. And I asked him one question, have you finished your college? He told me that was not necessary, sir.
Exactly.
And this is quite very different. So what I'm trying to understand from you is, we sometimes try to measure the success of these kids in the benchmarks of our educational framework. How do you really see if somebody has still a lot of creativity on tap? You might have been doing it quite a lot. And if you find out that, yes, there is still life inside a soul, who is too young, who can really do, how exactly you nurture these people? Because a lot of people who are listening in these sessions are faculty members, university authorities, deans. They might be coming across such kids. What's your suggestion for them?
So first thing, I was a poor student in school. Okay, I have no idea how I cleared each of those classes.
I would also add that I was also not too good.
so what really was happening? If you look at your skill, you can have skills in music, visual thinking, logical thinking. You can have in sports. You can have in poetry. There's so many different ways your skills could be. You are born with, or what you are born with. But in a college, they only looking for 3 things. Maybe physics, math, whatever. A few things. But if your natural skills don't completely align with what they're expected, you feel you're a misfit. Okay, and the current education system is not designed to bring out the best in you. It is to bring out what could be best for what the education system wants you to be, because this is a 300-year-old system where they want to create uniform people with uniform skills, from the British age. But that has to change. Now, how do you change it? It is, and the second part is that there is no such thing as a pure discipline anymore. It is a question of how do you connect disciplines? How do you use? I know mechanical engineers working with biologists to create things, and I'm actually working with doctors to create next generation of products and PPEs or whatever else. So you're thinking, and nothing is disciplinary anymore. But we're teaching, as if you get into the pipe as a mechanical engineer, you're going to exit as a mechanical engineer, and you have to do it all your life as a mechanical engineer. That is not true at all. You need to have cross connectivity all across. So I was teaching in the University of Rhode Island, and what I told the provost there is to create a program when the students join in the first month, they go through a making experience. They learn coding, CAD, problem solving, designing, presentation, just about all kinds of things. Then they start to realize that, oh my God, I have actually skills in places that I never thought I had. You know, and what really happens, I found this primarily in girls, is that the community says that this is all you can do. Boys can do something else, and they start to believe it, and it's absolutely not right at all. And when they go through this kind of an exercise, they suddenly realize that I can do just as good or better than the boys. Okay, that start to change the way they think. So we need to give them the platform to realize their potential to start with, and the education system almost have to start from that point.
One question, sir, is coming.
Okay.
Dharm Smita is asking, what is the single biggest differentiator between innovator and entrepreneur?
Oh, this is all in a continuum. So innovator is somebody who can solve a problem really well. Entrepreneur is somebody who can take this solution and go make it into a business. So innovator only looks within the problem system. That's why I showed the product system, problem system, and the business system. Innovator thinks with all the scientists who are designing next vaccines and medicines and all those, they're all innovators. Okay, but if you ask them to go make a business out of that, that requires a very different kind of a thinking. Okay, and that can be absolutely taught and that can be trained, but it's just that people just stop at some point. But my thinking is that these are all continuum, one from maker to innovator to entrepreneur. It is just the funnel is getting larger and larger. That's all.
Marmik is asking you, he was impressed by your zero to maker concept. How can he join your team?
Oh, so we have a team in India. Actually, this is headed by Dhruv.
Oh, one. So I will connect him. Marmik, write us a mail. I will connect to Dhruv.
Yeah.
Professor Mahesh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think same question, Hiranmay, I am also coming to ask. How do we change the mindset towards the ecosystem of the academic community at the early stages, like school teachers? This is one idea I am also very keen, because now at least we have come to the level where college student, first year student could be exposed to innovation and entrepreneurship, because student startup and innovation policy is providing grants. For the ideas, from ideas 25,000 to 2 lakh rupees we provide for any good idea proposed by a student. Now how do we take it more further, like up to say class 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? One interesting thing is, when I was young, people used to say in Japan even a 10th class student could assemble a radio transistor. I don't know it is true or not, but there was a perception that yes, that is what these people could know. Another question was, somebody asked, how do we know about Arduino and these kind of new technologies, Raspberry Pi and all, where do we learn it? So basically, it's about taking it beforehand. So I'm just combining the two things. The question is, how do we ensure that people are more aware even at an earlier stage through school teachers?
Yeah, I think this is where I talked about mentors as a catalyst. These school teachers are the mentors, where most often, this is actually even true in the universities, most often what happens is that if you're not confident about what you can teach, you don't know how to teach that, or you may even discourage somebody from learning that because you don't know how to do that. So in today's age, information is, when I was in school, if I had a question in physics, there were two people who could answer it. Okay, that's it in the whole school. So they were the only two people who could answer it. Today, if I have a question, I don't even need to go to my teacher. I can go find it on internet. I can find about 15 different explanations of the same problem. So we have, teachers were the keepers of information. They were the people who gave the information. Today, that has changed. Okay. Now, under this condition, what is the role of a teacher? No teacher can teach everything from all different directions, because even no professor, even at MIT, can teach everything. Okay, they all have their little specialties. So we all should understand that. But the teacher should think about it as, I don't know, let's actually learn together. Okay, Socratic learning by questioning. Okay, if somebody came and said, okay, this is not working, instead of giving them the answers, let's see why it is not working. Ask question, let the student go through it. And even if we don't know, say we don't know, I don't know, let's learn together. And that we should have the confidence to say that. If you have the confidence, then students also will come to you, otherwise they'll kind of, teachers may discourage the students from learning all those things that you don't know. So first thing is to change the mentors, may take the teachers to realize that, please, if you don't know, there's nothing wrong with it. None of us know everything.
Yeah, I think a good teacher should be a good learner first, right?
Yeah.
Because we are all in a lifelong learning. Even by attending these sessions, I am also learning a lot about these things. In fact, when it comes to learning about ecosystem, we have formed an informal group of people. Say 150 people are there. We are all doing some online course on ecosystem building, and we are thoroughly enjoying the process, and we are sharing ideas because we are all invested in developing this ecosystem at a personal level and also at our as our jobs. So I think ecosystem building enables everyone to become a catalyst. So that's the main
building
thing.
Should happen from top down and bottom up.
Yeah.
Down primarily is, funding, programs, policies, all those buildings and all those kind of things. None of those things will change the confidence in a kid who's trying to figure out his courses and get his marks and graduate. Okay, so you need to do the top down and also from bottom up. By taking them through these kind of learnings where they realize that they can do a lot of things, and then they nurture, they grow, blossom. So the top down can be a lot more effective when you have people coming up from bottom up.
The broad question is, and 3 questions have come in that segment. Changing students' mindset has happened. How to change parents' mindset?
That's what he has already answered.
Already covered that, yeah.
Yes, that is done. So any other question we can pose?
One student saying is, what is the classical difference that you see between your ecosystem in Kuala Lumpur and India?
Yeah, it's very important. I am very keen. In fact, you should give us some insights about ecosystem in the US and in the Southeast Asia and India, and what is our strength and what we can do to improve.
So I think Kuala Lumpur ecosystem is very similar to what you see in India. Okay, and there's no big difference in that. US ecosystem, what I have found is that when I was growing up, if I had to fix a door or if I had to fix an electrical thing, my father would say, call the carpenter or the plumber or electrician to do this. This is not your job. Okay, and there was the whole thing about, can you learn to do all these kind of things? Your job is to go find this kind of a job. This is not the kind of job that you should do it. And that break, that is absolutely, I felt it was unnecessary, because that kind of delayed my learning. By the time I started learning carpentry and learning all those things, it was much late in my life. But in the US, all those hands-on experiences is absolutely looked up. Right? There is nothing like looking down on those kind of jobs. And anything creative, it could be art, it could be mechanical things, it could be repairing cars and repairing, all those things are making skills so that you are learning how things work. And we used to run a program called Repair Fest, where we took all broken devices to these schools and asked these kids to open it up. And they were given screwdrivers, and they didn't even know which way the screwdriver opens and closes. They call it the lefty lefty loosey, righty tighty. That means if you turn it left, the screw will open up, and so we kind of have to start from there. But once they open it up and they start seeing things, it starts to change their thinking. So the exposure to all these mechanical, electrical, any of these kind of things, scientific engineering stuff, need to start much earlier. And that if you change that, that is the only change I see between students are not any different. Nobody is any more intelligent than the other. It is just the exposure. and if we can fix the exposure, we can fix the rest.
Professor Rajesh, Dr. Sheetal Tank from Rajkot is asking, how long do we need to handhold the student startups? I think she's apprehensive. Sometimes our handholding is also a little different.
So, either how long do we handhold a baby when she starts to walk? Okay, our job is to make the baby walk on a safe place, so that if she falls, she's safe. We don't make the baby walk down a staircase. Okay, we want them to go through these failures, but we want to give them safe areas to fail. Startups, entrepreneur is not a risk taker. Entrepreneur is a risk manager. So that means if I have an idea, I'm not going to go spend all the money I have to make the company. I'll put in, say, 1,000 rupees and go find, is my idea right? I go talk to a lot of people, ask potential customers and such. If the answer comes back, so I'm on the right path, then I may put 5,000 rupees and go back and see if I make a prototype and how do I do this. And each time you're actually improving your probability while you're putting more and more money. So there you're managing your risk rather than just taking a risk. At the end of it, you may see, oh, you put $1 million on a really wild idea. You must be really a good entrepreneur. No, I only put $100 in the first thing, and I made my probability from 5% to 10%. Then I put $200 or $300 and made it to 15, and then kept increasing the probability. So when you're dealing with a student, first thing, you should let them fail, but let them fail in safe modes. Don't put them in danger where they have to take all the money. And the moment they fail, let's learn from it. What did you learn? Because you can tell them till you turn blue in your face. They may not understand it, they won't learn till they learn it from their own experience. So use those failures as learning experience. So I think it's both. You should let them fail, and don't let them fail too hard. That's all.
Yeah, one question by a student, which is very interesting. I think I should answer it. It is from Tarpara, who is from Gujarat Forensic Science University. She is asking, saying that her students at the Forensic Science University, they are producing very high quality students with good knowledge. So in cybersecurity, they can do international level work. So she is saying how to spread this ecosystem in her college. So iHub is exactly for that purpose. Across Gujarat, anywhere, any innovation or any activity needs to be undertaken, we are there to help. Please contact ihubgujarat.in website. You can send us an email. Our email address is available. We can do awareness programs. If a student is having any idea, we throw challenges and they can apply for funding. So this way we can take up these activities. So I welcome anybody in Gujarat or even outside from Gujarat to come and work with us in any way they want to take it up. Another question was, somebody asked about how to buy a 3D printer in a subsidized rate. So if you have an idea that has a very POC is done and minimum viable product is available, now you want to go for, or even to do a minimum viable product, you need a 3D printer. We can provide you funding under student startup and innovation policy. So first pitch your idea and get the POC level, whatever support you need. Like I said, we up to 2 lakh rupees we are giving directly also, and even if it is required higher, the committee will evaluate, and if your idea is having potential, surely you can get all the funding you will deserve and you can prove yourself. So you can pitch your ideas to SSIP and the iHub Gujarat. Please contact us through our website. And thank you for asking these questions. I think Hiranmay, you can take last few questions.
I will take a couple of questions. One question is very interesting to me. Rajiv Majumdar is asking, sir, we have a lab in our school, and I think these are labs which Atal Incubation Center, Atal Tinkering Labs and other have made. But the problem is not with the machine. The problem is with the main. This is the faculty saying. The culture, the tools are there, the machines are there, the raw material is there, the laser beams are there, everything is there. But one thing which is missing is how do you create interest and not to make labs dying? How do you really create interest? This is something that is interesting.
So I know I've been to several of the labs, which is just like a 3D printer is not useful if it is kept in a glass case. Okay, and I believe some of these equipment need to fail, need to break. That means it has at least been used. Okay, because I know we are all scared of breaking an expensive machine. Yes, I can understand, but this is learning. Okay, and don't. First thing is that when I talk about being a maker, there is an urgency to make these students to make products that other adults can appreciate. So I see a lot of projects like, farmers have this problem, which is well outside of these kids' purview, but they're trying to solve a problem because we want to show other adults that a solution that they could understand. I think initially it should be the students should be left to learn, create all kinds of silly products that they want to play with. It should not have any, value for anyone else. You make a toy for a pet, and you can play with a cat, or something, stuff like that, because this is where the creativity comes. But you're asking them to solve world problems well before they have even learned to do something on their own. Okay, so if you can, even if you have an ATL, focus on making these silly toys and things like that kids really want to do, rather than what you want them to do that they have no interest in. So I would actually flip it around and say, okay, everybody go make a robot that can play football. Okay, or make a toy that will run away when the dog comes closer to it. Whatever. Let them actually figure it out how to do that, because once you're given a problem, then they need to learn how to break it up into how does it interact with the user, what is the physical aspects. So I need to learn the mechanical design and all those things. What are the electrical systems that is there? You have sensors, you have motors, all those kind of things. Then what is the logical operation? That means how do you write the code? When I see this sensor, I need to turn this motor backwards, a motor forward. So you're actually learning a whole product design from electrical, mechanical, system level, and even the user design experience, all in one, making a silly toy. Please don't push them to make things that are too, what we think others would appreciate. That is the only thing I can tell them.
One question I will take before I pass on to Sir for comments. Dr. Harsal Shah says, with a mindset, conventional mindset and innovative mindset, there might be, these are two isolated concepts, or a conventional mindset can be also converted into an innovative mindset? If so, what is that trigger which can convert a conventional mindset to innovation?
So, in 1600s, there was a very strong belief that scientists are born that way. Okay, you cannot train a scientist, you cannot make a scientist, you cannot make a doctor, you cannot make an engineer. They are like just born that way. Okay, then over the years of education, you have all have realized that no, that is not true. Anyone has the ability to understand the core of these things and then learning to apply it and master it, then they become the expert at it. Okay, so there is no such thing as a conventional mind. Conventional mind is like you and I, everybody's minds are all conventional. Okay, only thing is we have taken that mind and trained it in certain directions, and that requires training. That is not just natural. Even if you're natural, you still need to train them. Okay, so I believe anyone, give me any kid anywhere, I believe they can design. They could be designers, they could be innovators, they could be entrepreneurs. It is just a matter of how do you intervene in their life, how do you train them, and how much time do you give them to master their skills.